Yeah, I spend probably about between 30 and 50% of my time hiring, actually. And whether it's sourcing myself talents, talking to talents, calibrating for talents, talking to people to tell me who are the best talents out there, and then hiring them. So it's a full-time job for a lot of people internally, and it's definitely taking a lot of my time. So what I do to attract the best now, I have done the craziest thing.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe von Handelsblatt Disrupt, dem Podcast über neue Ideen, Disruptionen und die Zukunft der digitalen Welt. Mein Name ist Larissa Holzki und ich begrüße Sie wie immer ganz herzlich aus unserem Podcast-Studio hier in Düsseldorf. In Deutschland hören wir die Klage immer wieder. Europa sei im KI-Rennen abgeschlagen. Von einigen Reisen in den vergangenen Monaten kann ich Ihnen berichten, sobald Sie nach Frankreich kommen, klingt das ganz anders. Paris beansprucht für sich, so etwas wie die europäische Hauptstadt für KI zu sein und im Rennen um die Technologie mitzumischen. Das liegt nicht allein an Mistral, dem Pariser Wettbewerber von ChatGPT-Entwickler OpenAI. Große US-Konzerne wie der Facebook-Konzern Meta haben schon vor Jahren Forschungsstandorte in Paris aufgebaut oder eröffnen jetzt Neubüros. Und dann ist da noch eine ganze Reihe von jungen KI-Firmen, die von sich reden macht. Die US-französischen Firmen wie Coding-Firma Poolside und die Entwicklerplattform Hugging Face, Startups wie Ash, Qtime, Nabla und natürlich Pigment. Co-Chefin Eléonore Crespo ist einer der Stars der aufblühenden französischen Gründerszene und eine der ganz wenigen Unternehmerinnen überhaupt, die mit ihrer Firma noch vor dem Börsengang eine Bewertung von mehr als $1 Milliarde erreicht hat. Die studierte Quantenphysikerin baut mit Pigment eine KI-Software, mit deren Hilfe sich Businesspläne in Zukunft fast von alleine schreiben lassen. Als ich sie jüngst in Paris treffen wollte, hat sie kurzfristig für ein Treffen mit Frankreichs Präsident Emmanuel Macron und dem britischen Premierminister Keir Starmer absagen müssen. Jetzt sprechen wir bei Disrupt darüber, warum sie beim Ringen um Souveränität nichts von europäischen Alleingängen hält, wie sich durch KI die Arbeit von Vorständen und anderen Führungskräften verändert und darüber, wie sie im verrückten Kampf um KI-Talente schon mal auf einen berühmten US-Schauspieler gesetzt und gewonnen hat. Kleiner Spoiler, es war fast eine Mission Impossible.
Nach einer kurzen Unterbrechung geht es gleich weiter. Bleiben Sie dran.
Ransomware-Angriffe nehmen zu, während IT-Teams schrumpfen. Sophos-Experte Michael Veit zeigt, wie Unternehmen auch mit knappen Ressourcen widerstandsfähig bleiben. Welche Sicherheitsstandards haben jetzt Priorität und wie helfen KI und Managed Services dabei, Cyberbedrohungen abzuwehren? Wir zeigen außerdem, wie Firmen sich optimal auf neue Vorschriften vorbereiten und Compliance-Anforderungen sicher erfüllen. Den Link zur gesamten Folge gibt's in unseren Shownotes.
Übrigens, wenn Sie künftig über alle Themen aus den Bereichen Digitalisierung, Tech, Wirtschaft und Politik auf dem Laufenden bleiben wollen und noch kein Handelsblatt-Abo haben, möchte ich Ihnen unser exklusives Spezial für Disrupt-Hörerinnen und Hörer ans Herz legen. Mit dem Aktionscode MATTES sparen Sie 40% auf Ihr H+ Premium Jahresabo. Sie haben damit Zugriff auf alle aktuellen Artikel im Web und in der App, sowie auf unser E-Paper und das Handelsblatt-Archiv. Mehr dazu unter handelsblatt.com/disrupt40 und in den Shownotes. Und damit wechseln wir ins Englische und kommen direkt zu meinem Gespräch mit Eléonore Crespo, Mitgründerin und Co-CEO von Pigment. Salut and welcome to the show, Eléonore.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Awesome to be here.
Eléonore, we were supposed to meet a few weeks ago, but you had to cancel for a meeting with French President Macron and UK Prime Minister Starmer, no less. So what was the meeting about? Tell us.
Right. So it was a wonderful day at Downing Street, actually, that was gathering many CEOs. And the goal of that was actually to discuss about how can we create more sovereignty with AI and how can we become, real in the world of competing with AI. So it was fascinating. And I was with my fellow founders, like the founder of Mistral and Synthesia. And it's just so great to see UK and France trying to create incredible boundaries for the business to be stronger, to compete obviously in the global economy.
And no place at the table for Germany at the time. What was the key message you wanted them to take away?
I think the main thing for me is that I do believe that AI cannot be built in silos today. We have to think global, and we have to work as, one global voice to create the best technology, because we're at the very beginning of the wave. And so we have to work with the US, we have to work with Germany, we have to work with the UK. And if we really want to build true global players from Europe, it's the only way to make it work. And so it's all about collaboration. It's what happened with science and institutes like CERN that are very, very successful. I think that's exactly what we need for AI at the moment. And that was my key message, is that sovereignty is about winning together.
We often hear that Europe is falling behind in the AI race. Do you agree, or do we just lack self-confidence sometimes?
I do think we lack self-confidence, and of course, we are a combination of small nations. So we still need to find ways, I think, to work all together to make that happen. But I do think that in Europe we have so many strengths. We have the talent. We have some of the best universities in the world when it comes to be trained to be a software engineer, or to be an AI expert, or to be an AI scientist. If you look at the best AI companies in the world today, you will see that many of these scientists are actually European. You think about Demis Hassabis, you can think about Yann Lequin, and many other. They are from here. So we have the talent. Now the question is, how can we, again, do everything we can to have the infrastructure, to have the economic power, to obviously invest as we need to create our own economic power with AI, because it requires, as everybody knows, massive amounts of investments in the energy world. It requires, obviously, a very different scale of investment from a VC perspective as well. And this is really what we need.
And German founders often envy the French scene for having a president who promotes it. From the outside, it looks like a second French revolution, like liberté, égalité, innovaté. Is that success mainly politics, or just the most ambitious founders? What do you think?
I do think it's a combination. I do think we've been very lucky. Indeed, in France, Macron has been supporting what we call la French tech for many years now. And, the effort that are put from the government on the equity scheme, for instance, that is still not the same at the European level, and where some countries are still falling behind. If you want to attract the best talent, you need amazing equity to attract them, for instance, and a great way to tax them. If you think about also what Macron has done in terms of the visa and other things to attract foreign talent. Again, you cannot only be thinking about your own nation. There has been a lot of this happening. Now, I do think that, when we look at the landscape in Europe, Germany, France, UK have, I think, exactly a similar landscape of number of unicorns and incredible companies, incredible founders. And what I love too is that we have actually created some pan-European communities to really help one another. And I think that's also what makes the strength of Europe, is that us as founders, we know that we are not going to compete on our own, and we really try to do everything we can to really work together. So I'm, for instance, in this incredible community with the founder of Personio and many other founders from different countries. And I think that's also what makes us successful in Europe, is that we love to collaborate.
Yeah, and we need to talk more about competition and the war for talent during the show. First, I want to get into your personal journey in a moment, and before we start, let's start light with some either-or questions to get to know you a bit better. You can answer in one word, I think. So, what would you rather give up, Google or ChatGPT?
I'm a former Googler. So can I betray my the company that actually trained me? Look, the thing is, obviously, what I love today about Google is that they have Gemini, and they were falling behind in terms of the AI competition a year ago. But just look at what happened this week. They are launching new products that are groundbreaking every week. And I think the team of DeepMind and beyond are just doing incredible today in video editing, image editing, etc., what they've launched also to scan the world. So I would say, Google because it's my former employer, but of course I use ChatGPT every day as well. But I think, the power that Gemini is going to bring to the Gmail suite and to the full Google Workspace suite is going to be absolutely incredible.
So you still rely more on Google than on ChatGPT. You call the customer service hotline. Do you prefer an AI agent or a human?
A human, for sure. For sure.
The biggest risk of AI, taking jobs or taking over the world?
So look, I'm going to go back to my previous question because I prefer a human, but I want a human empowered by an agent with the best possible information out there.
Perfect.
And so going back to your second question, I think the biggest risk of AI is not necessarily that it's going to take over human, but it's going to take over the world if we don't put in place the right governance, the right ethics, and the right policies around as fast as we can. Because the revolution has to go very fast. It's a revolution that usually would happen in a century. It's going to happen in a decade. So that's what we have to be careful about.
Next one, your favorite thought leader, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman or Dario Amodei, who runs his competitor Anthropic?
I love that question. I have to say, I really love how both of them think because they are very, very different. I'm very inspired, obviously, by Sam Altman in the way he thinks about always thinking about the future. But what I love about Dario too is how concrete today is thinking about the world of enterprise and the world of science too. So I would say, Sam is a true inspiration for me because he's probably the most incredible seller on the planet and one of the most inspiring leader out there. And I think Dario, what I love about him and the trait that I love is that he's one of the, most interesting scientists out there. So what I love about leaders, what I mean by that is that what I love is picking some traits from them. And that's really what I would pick from both of them.
Great. An AI smarter than every human. Will it happen next year, in 5 years, or never?
Smarter than every human. It depends what smart means. I think, you have EQ, you have IQ, you have, there were debates not that long ago about AI consciousness, as a consciousness, etc. I would say AI, if you think purely about computation and about what an AI is capable of doing, on specific tasks, an AI can replace thousands of humans, if not billions of humans on specific tasks because it can run many things in parallel. And so it can think, act, and do things at the speed of light and can replace, really as many workforce as you want. But in parallel of that, of course, an AI will never have empathy. They will never understand the words. And it's somehow, if you think about today, LLMs, for instance, in particular, they will never be seeing the world as a newborn will be seeing the world. And you take the example, for instance, you take a 4-year-old today and how much information they have gotten in to understand what the world is about and understand how things work and interact together. Well, today there is never, ever an LLM, just a pure technology of LLM that will be able to do that. So if you want at some point an LLM to understand the world as any human being is understanding the world today, you will need to combine it with other technologies that are much more around vision, around smell, around obviously your 5 senses. And, even just the taste or things like that have never been, cracked today by AI. So today we are very far from that. EQ for me is as important, if not more important than IQ. Mm-hmm. And there, AI will never be able to do something there. So I would say for me, the goal of AI will be more to empower us, to improve the way we use and treat our IQ, but it will never be to replace what makes the essence of a human.
Interesting perspective. Last one. If there's one thing you could automate overnight, what would it be?
That's a very good question. You know what? I'm just going to tell you the topic of the morning. What I'm trying to automate right now is that I do think we spend too much time every day, whether you're a CEO or anyone at a company, doing tasks that are irrelevant. So I'm going to give you an example. The time I spend in my inbox, just really trying to triage my email, answering in a very smart way to the different things I receive, whether it's a partner, whether it's a customer, etc. Everything that could help me automate my inbox, but in a very smart way. Meaning that today there are ways to do auto draft, etc. But they are not as good as really having very specific prompts to everything I do. And it's something I'm creating right now for my own inbox. But I think there are many things like that. That's just one example that, are going to be created that are really going to replace your interaction, which sometimes can be cumbersome, whether it's with email. We've seen many platforms coming now for note-taking in meeting, etc. I just think what I would love to automate overnight is things that make any company out there broken. Meaning, you lose who took a decision at a company because you don't know where it has been logged and you've lost that information. And you lose information around, how a forecast has been done for my, financial planning because it hasn't been logged properly and you don't understand the context, etc. All of this should be completely automated tomorrow. And we are in a very good way to do that because we already see many platforms that are taking a leap there. And I think we're going to see much more in the next 2 years.
I totally agree. So AI is very good with doing spam, but not so good with cleaning up all the mess.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. Let's talk about your personal journey. As a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I think I wanted potentially to become a research scientist when I grew up because I was always super interested in science. I loved mathematics. I loved physics. I really wanted to understand the physical world. And so I think I wanted to do something in science. I was thinking perhaps in the medical sphere or biologic sphere, etc. And so I actually went and studied in that world. So I did some studies in quantum physics and then as an engineer. And I think, just trying to understand the world has always been my first and only passion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you studied physics and engineering, then researched neurons and cancer. Later you worked at Google and Index as an analyst and investor. How did that lead you to starting a company?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. I always wanted to have an impact, and I always wanted to really understand and find solutions for the world. And I joined Google after my studies because for me it was one of the most innovative companies out there. And I actually joined just at the time of the acquisition of Google DeepMind. Mm-hmm. So it was just fascinating to see this beyond many other, actually, there were like so many among so many other innovations that were happening at Google at the time. It was just fascinating to see a company being capable of doing so much research in parallel. So I was very inspired by that and also by their management model, how innovative they were at thinking about how to lead and manage people. And when I joined Google, what I realized though is that so many processes internally were broken, mm-hmm. meaning that I was quite surprised to see that I was working at some point for the CFO, so the financial, the chief financial officer of Google in EMEA and of Alphabet. And most of the processes that were there for decision-making at Google were done on Google spreadsheets. Mm-hmm. And, we were trying to understand and take scenarios for the trajectory of Google that was literally generating billions in revenue using Google spreadsheet. That was really definitely not made for the scale of such a company. And I saw this type of processes that were completely broken, that, were not normal for a company of that size. And I was thinking, for me, for the most innovative companies of that size, I would have imagined, as a young person in the workforce that all of these problems would have been solved. And I was quite surprised to see that this was one of the many problems that was not solved and was a nightmare for all the C-level executives because they were not capable of taking the right decisions because they didn't have tools to do that. Mm-hmm. So they were, trying to take decisions based on a very subset amounts of data that they could fit into Google Sheet that were very siloed, that were not connecting between teams, that were not giving them the real picture of the reality. And I was very surprised. I was very lucky then to join Index Ventures as an investor. It's an amazing VC firm that is based between San Francisco and London. So I got exposed.
Tried to find the founders who solved that problem.
Exactly. I tried to find, I was obviously an investor, so meeting many founders. And again, very surprised to see that this was a recurring problem. Mm-hmm. The problem I just described was true at every single forward-looking company that Index Ventures was backing. So you think companies that were about to IPO or that were growing so fast post-IPO, you think about companies that we had backed at the time, Scale AI, Datadog, companies that are beyond successful today. All of them were struggling with these topics of really understanding their company really well and understanding where to invest, how to proactively be very, very good. And so I thought that was an amazing problem to crack. And so fast forward after Index, decided to create Pigment to solve that specific problem. And I thought that it would probably be amazing for me because it would reignite some of my passions, which are truly understanding the world. Because at Pigment, every day I need to understand a new business model. I really need to understand how every company runs to be obviously relevant to them. And at the same time, using technology and being at the forefront of technology and innovation to serve this customer in the best possible way. And it's been fascinating. It's been 6 years and it's fascinating.
Was there any company or founder who became a role model for you? People often say female role models are missing. And indeed, you're one of the very few women who built a $1 billion startup.
Yeah, so I would say, so first of all, I would say when I was young, I remember my brother offered me the book of Sheryl Sandberg. And,
Which is the former CFO of Meta, the parent company
Meta,
of
exactly.
Facebook. Yeah.
She was the right arm of Mark Zuckerberg. And now the new Sheryl is probably Fiji Simo that was just hired by Sam Altman as his right arm to run OpenAI. And I think, Sheryl for me was a role model at the time. And today, I think, there are many incredible female founders out there that are obviously friends or peers, either obviously the CEO of Venta, of Writer, Melanie, who is the CEO of Canvas, that has been beyond successful. And I've also been very inspired by, I'm not, I have never been in my life looking for necessarily like female role model. I've always been looking for, who could really help me think about specific topics, and people that, were in my journey were, for instance, Satya Nadella, who I think is one of the best managers out there, that, has completely transformed the way Microsoft runs today. And, with topics that are very close to obviously what we do, or Bill McDermott, for instance, at ServiceNow, who was really being able to transform the company with AI. And as I said before, I think at Google, Demis Hassabis was for me the god of AI, and someone that I keep following very closely.
DeepMind.
Of DeepMind, yeah.
It's said you looked for your co-founder like a CIA agent when you founded Pigment in 2019. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so I think the only way to success in a company is that you will never be able to do anything on your own. Unless perhaps now with AI, I'm sure we will create, and I know some founders say that we'll be able to create what $1 company on your own, and that's probably possible at some point. But I was not in that category, so I needed to be surrounded. And I think at the time, I was looking obviously for who would be the best co-founder for me. And so the first thing I did at the time was to do a list of who I think were the best potential technical co-founder that could complement my own skills. And so I did that list, obviously diligencing the full European market. I was looking for somebody in Europe and trying to understand, who could be the mix of somebody that was technically brilliant, somebody that, had potentially done something similar before, and somebody that also had like the right business mindset. And it's interesting because I was very, very lucky here is that my co-founder came first in that list because he was a co-founder of a company called Criteo that was a $1 billion company that IPO'd on the NASDAQ now about 10 years ago, that was really successful at the time, one of the first French unicorn. And I knew he was going to be available. So I actually decided before even reaching out to my entire network, and I did that CIA work of really trying to understand who he was from an external perspective. So I asked as many people as possible, and I understand that he was just the most wonderful human being. And I went to him, and I had prepared in order to convince him, because I knew for sure he would not want to work with me, because why would he like to work with me? So I came and I had prepared a 50 pages memo with ideas of companies and things we could do together to prove him that I was very serious. And I think I was super pleasantly surprised that he was actually open to discussing, and that's how it all started. I knew him from Index because he was Criteo was a company that was on the portfolio of Index Ventures, but we didn't know each other very well at the time. And so That was really how it started. And then, we spent probably 9 months, just the two of us. And obviously the first months were me, convincing him to work together and then starting to create the relationship.
And now people say you consider the company as your own child. I mean, with 9 months of preparation.
That's true. I didn't realize that. That's very true.
That makes a lot of sense. And that brings us directly to Pigment. For those who don't know, in a nutshell, what does Pigment do?
Yes. So think about Pigment as a solution to help you with your decision making. So it's what we call an enterprise performance management platform that helps you with everything planning, everything's analytics. So it's a data platform where you will reunite your data, so your finance data, your HR data, your commercial data, etc. And the goal of Pigment will be to help you take better decisions. So if I take a step back, today, if you look at the macroeconomic environment, the world is very volatile. There are events happening every day. Inflation, tariffs, you name it, wars, shortage of supply. CFOs, CEOs, chief revenue officers, they need to react very, very fast to this type of events. They cannot wait weeks, they cannot wait months to say, I'm going to take a decision when I'm impacted by tariff. I need to act very quickly. And I need to run different scenarios in perspective, in parallel on my data to understand what can happen to me. So with Pigment, what we do is to help them take this type of decision. So this decision can be reactive, such as what I described, but it can also be proactive.
Like if I want more revenue, it shows me how many sales jobs I need.
Exactly. And the goal is really to connect teams. So it's really to say, okay, next year I want to grow 10%. I want to grow 20%. I want to open a new country. I want also to understand perhaps if it's a good idea to launch a new product. I want to understand how many people I need to hire. I need to understand if my supply matches my demand. I need to do capital planning, etc., etc. All of that you can do in Pigment. It's a platform that helps you plan and helps you analyze the data and helps you run scenarios.
And does it tell me when my expectations are too high?
So it definitely. So the goal, obviously, is that with the power of AI, AI is here with Pigment to help you as a true business partner. So it's really helping you to understand if the choices you are making are on the assumption you are getting are right or wrong. So the goal of AI and more over time will be with Pigment to really help you understand whether you are taking the right assumptions. Here, perhaps you should course correct. You cannot perhaps grow at 50% and at the same time improve your margin by X number of points. You need to make trade-offs here and there. And the goal for us will be over time to actually create what we call autonomous planning. And it's things we're already working on with some customers. For instance, we have a project right now that is going to happen with Uber, where we are going to try to create this autonomous business planning platform.
And where does the data come from?
So the data comes from your different systems.
So it's only my own data about my own company. It's not about market data.
So you can bring anything. Yeah, you can bring external data, and it's actually very interesting. And I think especially now with the power of agentic AI, so I'm happy to explain how that works, but you can now retrieve data literally from everywhere. And that's what makes usually it even more interesting is that in order to be very, very relevant today, it's very interesting for you to bring macro context. Sometimes it can be FX rate, it can be competitive data, it can be benchmark data to understand, for instance, am I compared to the rest of the industry? How are my growth rates? What is my headcount right? Am I hiring enough people to fill that need, etc., etc. So that's also what makes it super interesting. Is that today with Pigment you can include as much external data as you want. It can be weather forecast. It can be really anything to help you take better decision.
It's always on me. It's not the case that you deliver the intelligence with all the customer data you already have and you learn from customer to customer?
So I think that's a very tricky topic. We do that actually at the customer level, meaning that we deliver intelligence at the customer level with the data that they have. So for instance, we have customers like Coca-Cola or Unilever that have, huge amounts of data where obviously there is enough to learn within the customer. Now, we are obviously working with customers that are large size companies. And so they want us to treat their data obviously very specifically for their company. And so we are very, very serious about that. What we are able to do, though, is being able to help them with benchmarks, for instance, on specific topics that are more like public information. But we are not using like customer data to go from one customer to another, because financial data is usually a big, big strategic asset for most of our customers.
Yeah, and what about your own company? How do you use Pigment internally, and which numbers tell you it's working?
So actually we use it everywhere. We use it from the HR team to deal with everything company information, employee information. We use it for performance cycle, promotion cycle. We use it to understand our employee data, etc. We use it everywhere. We use it in HR. We use it in customer support. We use it to handle our tickets. We use it in customer success to maintain all of our databases of customer and understand how they progress. We use it in sales to understand all of our KPIs. We obviously use it in finance. And actually, the power of Pigment is really to use it cross teams and to connect the dots together. Because it's very hard to take a financial decision if you don't understand perfectly how the business works. So this is really powerful. And the KPIs we are tracking obviously is always like the number of users that are using Pigment and obviously how they are using it also internally, like how are they using our agents, how are they using the different features that we have on the platform, what is not working. And we are, I think, the first one to eat our own dog food, right? It's like we really need to dog food the product, test the product to make sure it's successful for our own customers.
And now I get your problem with the inbox. Everything else is already automated. No, lots of our audience are decision makers, and they're certainly interested in their own future. So what will the AI and data-empowered C-suite look like in the future?
That's a wild topic. So I would say, first of all, what we see today is not a reflection of what we will have in 5 years from now. I think we are at the very, very beginning of this revolution of agents. You really have to think about agents and the power of agents as exactly what the PC revolution and the internet revolution have done to the world. It's going to be the same level. It's going to be completely changing the workflows, because now every team member, whether it's a C-level or someone else, is not going to spend time on tasks that are low value. They are really going to spend time on designing the framework and validating the data. That's going to be really the work.
So how do you define AI agent? I think it's important because everyone is talking about agents now.
Agents, yeah. So an agent, there are a variety of agents. It can go from, I would say, a background assistant to a true digital intern to really a true digital coworker in a way. So it means an agent is going to be, it's basically something that is going to be able to get data somewhere, work on that data, meaning you can really close your laptop at night, reopen it in the morning, and the task will be done end to end.
Amazing.
So it's going to be able to act on that data, think about that data, do multiple stage. It's not just a one stage. It's like do multiple stage. So be able to really achieve a proper workflow and then give answers and interact with other agents around it. So it's why there are frameworks of agents that are being created today, is because the goal will be that my agent is going to communicate with your ERP agent, with your HRIS, so with all the softwares that you're going to use within a company. My agents are going to be able to interact with other agents. So it's very powerful because it means you are really going to be able to delegate an end-to-end task and not just give them something small to automate. So for instance, for Pigment, we have started with automating simple tasks such as budget variance analysis, which is something that a lot of finance people do on a regular basis. But over time, the goal of agents will be really to do like full workflows end-to-end and be able to build full template, for instance, financial models for you without much human interaction, apart from you designing the framework and then validating that this is what you wanted. So it's a true revolution because it means you are really not going to spend the time on the same things. So if you think about the C-suite now, there are many things today that are frustrating for a CEO or for a CFO or for any other C-level executive.
Tell us about your nightmares.
I think one of them being understanding the universe of the possible. Meaning, What I mean by that is that when I am asking, for instance, about Pigment and about our trajectory or 5-year plan, what are we going to do in the next 5 years? I don't want an answer where I only get a view on 2 or 3 plans of what that look like. What I would like ultimately is a view of 3,000 plans of what that could look like, and a way to actually tell me, actually based on everything I know about you and the company, this is going to be the best trajectory for you, and here are the reasons. This is what the market is going to react to positively, because you need compound growth, and at the same time you need to achieve the rule of 40, or you need to do X, Y, and Z. And I do think that today, unfortunately, what we all lack of, especially as high growth company, is time. Mm-hmm. And the lack of time shields you from seeing this universe of possible. And this is where agents are going to be critical, is because they are going to be able to do things that were not even possible before, not even things that you would think about, because they would require years to be achieved. Literally years. It would be a strategic reflection that would take years of like 200 people at your company to achieve, and you're not going to do that. So that's, I think, what's going to fundamentally change. And then, of course, it's going to change literally every workflow at a company. So if you do it well, it is going to completely transform the company end to end and make it not only a lot more efficient, but a lot more interesting for everybody working there.
Mm-hmm. AI agents are obviously one of the big trends this year, and you just announced something in that area. Does that mean businesses will plan themselves soon?
I think so. I think planning is not the easiest topic to crack, because today, I think we've seen many agents that have been very successful in the world of everything using language, because LLMs are about language. So you've seen customer support, you've seen customer success, you've seen legal, you've seen agents in that world, or marketing, that have been very successful. And coding, because coding is language as well. So this has been amazing. So you've seen the Cursor, the Lovable, the Sierra, the 11 Labs of this world that are all in that category. Now, what is incredible about this new revolution is making language work on numbers. And this is what we are trying to crack here, is making it work on numbers and making a company fully autonomous on how they are going to plan. So we start with the analyst agent. And so the analyst agent is really about carrying end-to-end any analysis, any financial, commercial, revenue operation analysis for you. And what we are going to do next is what we call the planner agent, which is planning end-to-end for you automatically.
Sounds interesting and impressive. People like Sam Altman make huge promises about AI agents too. For example, that research will almost run itself. And on the other hand, analysts at Gartner say we are already at the very top of the hype cycle. So which promises do you think are overblown, and what are realistic expectations for the short-term perspective?
Sure. So I think, first of all, I would not say that we are at the overhype, because I don't think agents have been adopted by companies. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that we've seen, I think we've seen today groundbreaking innovation. And I think Dario, actually from Anthropic, I was at a conference with him the other day, and he was saying there is a speed of innovation, but there is then how slow it takes to obviously adopt that at scale for enterprise for the right reason, because implementations, the governance, you need to think about security, you need to think about all of these topics. So we are still far from having like broad implementation of these agents. And I think we are still far also from having agents that are fully working and deployed at every SaaS companies out there. So not yet provided to actually enterprise. So I would say there is probably still a way to go before reaching what people call AGI, which is like general intelligence. But I do think then that on the agent front, and especially what it can bring to the enterprise, oh my God, the revolution is at the very beginning, because it's going to take so much time to, first of all, get people to understand the value of it, get people trained, upskilled, reskilled on how to use that, the new jobs that are going to be created around that, etc. There is still a long way to go. And this is what is fascinating, I think. And this is where we have to help that be done the right way.
Mm-hmm. We talked about OpenAI, Anthropic, XAI is another company in that space with billions going to those companies and big tech. Does that intimidate you? And why do you think that smaller firms like Pigment still have a chance?
So I think, actually we have it's not even that we have a chance, is that we are, it's the most incredible time right now to build Pigment on companies to be part of that revolution, because these companies, if you think about OpenAI or Anthropic, they are the infrastructure companies providing the technology for a company like Pigment to be incredibly successful at creating this agent and the agentic framework for all companies to use. So I think, the goal of these companies has never been to try to think about, I am going to deploy, and of course they are going to deploy enterprise apps, and don't get me wrong, they already do it with coding and many other topics, but they are never going to be able to replace every SaaS software in the world. That's not the goal. The goal for them today is to provide the best possible technology to solve some of the biggest problems in the world. And so for us, we are in a category which is a category that is actually very complex, solving issues with numbers and really helping companies understand their business, helping companies plan better, etc., is quite a complex topic. And so these technologies are a groundbreaking revolution that is the most interesting opportunity of the century for a company like Pigment. So I am more than excited, and I think where we are very lucky is that we are in a world where all of these companies have been very collaborative and actually helping us develop. We are super close to OpenAI, for instance, and they're helping us develop the best model for us to be very successful at what we do.
Mm-hmm. You've raised about $250 million. That's a lot for a European startup, but not so much in the US context. Still, building a company here is cheaper, and European founders have a reputation for being especially efficient. Investors love that. What's different about building a startup in France compared to the US?
So I think you need to think global day one, because you're not going to create a company that is French, and you need to capitalize on what is amazing in France that you can capitalize on to create this global business. So I am very inspired, obviously, by what SAP in Germany has been able to do to become such an incredible leader globally. And I think that's really what I would love to be able to do with Pigment, right? Is to capitalize on what's amazing in Europe to create this global leader. So for us, the strength of creating it from Europe and what is different is that we are able to attract the best engineers that are very loyal, because we are not, there is not a culture like in Silicon Valley where the best engineers are, changing every 2 years companies, etc. In Europe, people love and reward long-term innovation, which is fantastic. We also have a culture where, as I said, AI is embedded in what we learn and what we get trained at school when we do engineering school. So we have incredible machine learning talents internally, back-end talents internally, etc. And then, as we have to think global, we know that day one, I think year 2 of Pigment, we had already created an entity in the US. We were already selling in the US. I was looking for investor there. So I think that's a real strength, because when you are in Europe that there will be complexity into dealing with different entities, because how complex Europe is in regards to that. And there is something that is amazing too, is that law is so complex in Europe that whenever you go somewhere else, things are actually getting much easier when it comes to hiring people, thinking about creating a new business from a tax standpoint, etc. So I think that's also a big strength for us, is that we know how to sell differently than in the US. Now, what is harder though is that there are not so many peers company, to your point earlier, and so you always need to caliber against peers, because you never know, you need to learn from other what's next. And here, of course, I need usually to find a lot of advice from US companies, because there are not so many peers that are very similar to Pigment in Europe.
So we need more competition.
Definitely. We need a lot more competition. Yeah. I really hope that, in 10 years from now, we have, 3 times is not 10 times the number of unicorns that we have today.
Nach einer kurzen Unterbrechung geht es gleich weiter. Bleiben Sie dran.
Ransomware-Angriffe nehmen zu, während IT-Teams schrumpfen. Sofas Experte Michael Veit zeigt, wie Unternehmen auch mit knappen Ressourcen widerstandsfähig bleiben. Welche Sicherheitsstandards haben jetzt Priorität und wie helfen KI und Managed Services dabei, Cyberbedrohungen abzuwehren? Wir zeigen außerdem, wie Firmen sich optimal auf neue Vorschriften vorbereiten und Compliance-Anforderungen sicher erfüllen. Den Link zur gesamten Folge gibt's in unseren Shownotes.
You already mentioned the war for talent. Talent is the most important resource when building a tech company today. And that could also be a challenge for hubs like Paris, where you have competitors. You're competing not only with French companies like Mistral, but also with US giants like Meta and OpenAI, who have opened offices in Paris. How do you experience this war for talent and how do you win that war?
So I think, first of all, people, when you think about people at Pigment, they really join Pigment because they want to be at a great place to work. And a great place to work means a work where they feel super connected to the mission, to the values, to many factors that are very unique from one company to another. And I think for me, that has been a big and amazing lesson since the beginning, is that people, they really come usually to us because they know Romain, they know my co-founder, they want to work for him, they know how fantastic he is as a technical leader, and they want to work with the best. And so I think for me, the only way to compete and to keep attracting the best people at Pigment is to maintain the bar almost higher than any company out there. And to think, how can we really have a bar that is as high, if not higher, than any other large AI company or AI tech that are out there? Because people really want to work and care every day about who they work with. So it's a war that obviously is going to keep amplifying, but I think it's great at the same time, because this war is a war that is creating the talents of tomorrow. Like you think about the number of graduates that are trained by companies like Google, by companies like Meta, by companies like OpenAI. These talents are going to be on the market tomorrow, more senior, probably ready to join more of a scale-up, etc. So for me, it's just a virtuous cycle. If these companies were not there, we would not even be able to exist and have great talents, because they would not have been trained anywhere.
Okay, but companies like Anthropic pay sky-high salaries, like $400K for one engineer.
Yeah.
Do you do that too?
So first of all, we do, it's a mix of salary and also equity. A lot of people at Pigment, the reason why they are, here for the long term is because they have high stakes also to make the company super successful. And I do think that this war for money, etc., that is happening in the Valley is interesting, but is it truly sustainable? Because at the same time, it's like, you need at some point, when I see engineers that are trading from one company to the next, changing every year just based on the base salary, are these the people that I really want at Pigment? Probably not. What I care about is people that are here for the long term. When I look at a resume, actually, I look for people that are here ready to stay 7 years in a role. And usually these people, they come for the right reason. That is a combination of obviously how much we pay them. And we actually at Pigment, we pay in the top 5% of companies. So we are in that, we always are more than super generous because we just want the best people. Same with equity. And then combine that with like an amazing environment to work, which is over the long run probably more important than the rest. But compensation, the only rule is that you have to stay at the top 5%. Otherwise, clearly, you're never going to be able to attract the best.
And to make that crystal clear, so those 400K is an example from London. It's not the amount you need to pay in San Francisco. Which roles do you consider hardest to fill? And do you have any hiring stories where you absolutely wanted someone to join? What did you do to get him or her?
Yeah, I think every role is hard to fill. That's what I realized, that there is nothing easy in life. Nothing comes from free. And I would say the most difficult is obviously all the executive roles that I need and that, as the company evolves, these roles evolve, and the type of people and talent evolve as well as the company. And some talents grow with you, and then some talents are here for a certain amount of time, and then you need the person that's going to take you to the next level. So that's the most difficult part, is not only to find them, but then to convince them to join. So I spend probably about between 30 and 50% of my time hiring, actually. And whether it's sourcing myself talents, talking to talents, calibrating for talents, talking to people to tell me who are the best talents out there, and then hiring them. So it's a full-time job for a lot of people internally, and it's almost, it's definitely taking a lot of my time. So what I do to attract the best now, I have done the craziest thing. Give
us some examples.
So the last person I hired, I actually, so first of all, it took me a long time, and it's a long run. So I'm going to give you some anecdotes, but these are not the most important. The most important is the long term, the relationship you create. They want to see a movie to understand how it's going to be to interact. So you have to call them every day. They have to understand your personality. You have to bring them to lunch, to dinner. They have to understand your family, where you come from. These podcasts are actually incredibly helpful for them too, because it gives them a hint into who you are as a leader. And so you have to spend the time. I create decks where I actually expose to them what is important for the companies or company values. I explain to them what is going to be super hard for them in the role. And then, I always try to be doing the extra mile and being, making the experience fun for them as well. So we, last time, the anecdotes I wanted to share was that I am very lucky to work with Iconic, which is one of our investors, that is one of the biggest family office in the world.
The one from Mark Zuckerberg, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. It's Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg and many other. And one of their friends is Tom Cruise. And so last time I was in San Francisco and Tom Cruise was in town, and he was doing a small fireside chat followed by a preview of his last movie. And so I brought the candidate to meet Tom Cruise. And I think even if you can think whatever I think Tom Cruise is obviously the idol of pretty much everybody when we were teenagers. So that was quite a fun moment even for me. I think, but that's just an example of being memorable. But
and the most important question: did it work out?
It did. It did work out. He joined us. And he's a fantastic hire. But the point is, you need. I think this interview process, you need to reveal your personality as much as possible, and I do the CIA work on that too, meaning I talk to so many people to understand who that person is going to be a good hire. That's really the back door that is going to give you exactly who that person is, more than his friends or his fellows, that the fellow people is going to put you in touch with his peers. And not only that, but you need, as many people at the company to be part also of the process, to meet and do a very strong case study also to understand if that person is relevant.
The bar is very high now, so the next one will come to you, say, bring me to Taylor Swift. Let's do a personal meeting with her, then I consider joining you.
I will try. That could be the next level.
It's that you not only are cherry picking about employees, but also about customers. So as a startup, can you really choose who's your customer, or do you need to choose because you can't serve everyone?
Yes, but at the beginning, we were, and I think still today, you have to be very focused on specific segments of customers, and you need to, the focus is always key, because the problem at a company, I was telling earlier, is time, and spreading yourself too thin is never going to make you successful. So you need to think about, do you want to serve large companies, smaller companies, both? Do you want to serve at what size your tool is not relevant? At what size your tool is maybe not mature enough to serve this type of companies, because you can lose so much time and efficiency in terms of your go-to-market strategy if you haven't thought about that. So I think about that a lot. And for us, it's been very clear day one that we wanted to go after large companies. But when you sell to C-level executives, especially the CFO, the first thing you need is trust. And so at the very beginning, we tried, and we still try today in certain categories, to pick our first customers, to find logos that would attract the next wave of customer. So you have to understand that CFOs, they talk to each other. There are small communities out there. And if they want the right governance model for their data, they are not going to pick whatever companies is out there. They need to understand how great you are and how serious you are. So having customers that are, forward-looking CFOs that, have done groundbreaking work into always, backing the latest technology, but with the right due diligence process has been key. So that's why very early on, for instance, we decided to go and sign companies and try to convince companies like Figma in the US. Recently, we signed the largest cybersecurity company in the world. We signed ServiceNow, we signed Uber, we signed Coca-Cola, Unilever.
In Germany, Siemens and N26.
Siemens, yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. N26, we signed Dreier Storage in Germany, etc. This type of customer that we know have a marquee brand that are going to really help us signing the next wave of customer within their specific industries. So I do think that that's a very hard step because the first one is hard, but that it unlocks a true network effect within a specific industry.
And now you need to give us a look at your numbers. Revenue, customers, headcount, where are you today?
Yeah, so we don't disclose our revenue numbers. What I can tell you is that our growth has been fantastic since the beginning because there is a need for such a platform. We've been incredibly lucky to be in a category where the need is massive. Everybody needs to plan better in this uncertain environment. So we've been doubling, the past year, we are going to double again this year. We want to be close to doubling again next year. A number of customers, we have approximately 500 customers today. We have 60% of our revenue in the US. Our biggest market after the US are Germany, the UK, France. And we are 600 employees today approximately.
And how many agents?
How many agents? How many agents deployed? So actually, internally, we have quite a few agents deployed, especially customer support, in marketing, in sales. We are using many technologies already today. We are really putting a big effort into being as efficient as possible in these categories.
So let's look ahead. I think we are at a critical point in the AI hype. Many firms still don't see AI boosting profits or revenue. Where do you think AI and automation are headed?
Oh, I think they are. It depends on what you are talking about. But for me, the biggest thing right now is going to be, we are going to see most of the most successful SaaS companies out there. So you think about, we were talking earlier about ServiceNow. We could, discuss about literally the most successful SaaS companies in any category, whether it's in HR, in sales, in business, are going to start putting in the market their own agent framework. And that is going to start being deployed in the market. I think that's going to be really the biggest step now. That's the biggest revolution. Because right now, a lot of what AI was for companies was similar to a bit what Microsoft Copilot is. It was a help to find, specific data points, or using helping you with prompts on specific topics. But I think we are going to come to this shift right now, which is going to be this paradigm of really helping you with workflow. But what companies have to understand, though, is that if they really want AI to start boosting their profits and their margin, it's not going to come naturally. It's not going to come automatically, and it's not going to come at the cost of nothing. They will need to train and retrain massively everyone in their company, because nobody is fluent in AI today. People know how to use ChatGPT, perhaps, but they don't know what it is. They don't understand necessarily the power of agents. They haven't seen it in action. They don't exactly know companies, what is even feasible today in the world. So you have to educate. You have to create ways to make them understand this new technology and train them to this new technology. And then the second thing is that I think because it's the beginning of that AI revolution, it's not going to come at no cost. It will need also big effort in terms of implementation on services. Mm-hmm. And we see that today actually with OpenAI and other companies, they are actually hiring a lot of forward deployed engineers. And that has been the success of Palantir early on, and it's the case today. And these engineers are here to help you deploy agents or models internally. And I think, again, I think it's the reality is that it's going to be more complex than you think if you want to deploy it successfully, and it's going to take longer. And it's normal that you don't see results yet, because deploying it at scale at most companies out there is requiring massive investment from the company itself on all of these regards. Mm-hmm. So I would say I am still very confident, but it will come at a cost.
And forward deployed engineers always sound so fancy, but basically it means that they have their own consulting arms, isn't it? So
Exactly. Consultant, but I would say technical consultant. Yeah. Very technical consultant.
Yeah, but yes. That's also implying that AI is not, I always say plug and play, but it's a lot of work to do. So, and that leads me to one of my final questions. My impression is that skepticism about the AI boom and the acceleration of AI development has never been as high as it is today since ChatGPT launched. So how likely is it that the AI bubble bursts in the next 12 months?
So I think there is a reality which is, as always, for every revolution, it was the same with the internet revolution. It was the same with probably the search engine revolution, etc. There is obviously a lot of excitement and so a lot of investment being poured into the market. Now, clearly, a lot of those companies are going to fail. If you think about Google at the time, it was probably the generation number 5 of search engine. So it was not the first search engine that suddenly won the market. So a lot of companies that have been backed today and that are being backed with like massive amounts of VC VC investments are probably going to die, for sure.
So OpenAI is not too big to fail?
I think OpenAI starts to be in another category. I think OpenAI, they have proven that they are, clearly like their viral capability and what they have been able to achieve from a user adoption perspective has been quite incredible. Now you never know what the future is about, because it's all about the leadership of the company and how they are able to take it to the next level, because they have very, very big competition ahead. But I'm very, very confident that today they still have everything to be hyper successful. So I think the question is more, yes, it's very possible that there is a bubble, because as always, when there are massive amounts invested, a lot of these companies are not going to be successful, and you're going to see a little bit of that backfire. But at the same time, it is what is needed to create this next revolution. And we've seen that in the past, these waves of, yes, perhaps it's a bit of a burst, but then, that's paving the way for the revolution. So I am still extremely confident about the future. And I don't think that everybody has been able to really see already the power of that revolution, but it can only be done, again, if it's done properly by companies. And that is, I think, where we are still failing, even as, providers of that technology. We still need to invent the right model to actually make sure that we can really bring these companies along with the power of that technology and bring them the right value. And I don't think value will be created necessarily everywhere at the company. Also today, it's going to become in wave. It's going to start with certain teams and then expand to other categories. But I don't think that you will see the revolution all of a sudden solving all of your problems in the company. Definitely not.
And I think that's a very good high note and positive note to end with. That's all the time we have for that conversation. Eléonore, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Und damit sind wir auch schon wieder am Ende von Handelsblatt Disrupt. Wie immer freuen wir uns über Kommentare in der Handelsblatt Disrupt LinkedIn-Gruppe. Sie können mir aber auch eine E-Mail schicken. Die Details finden Sie in den Shownotes. Dank an dieser Stelle auch für die Unterstützung von meinen Handelsblatt-Kollegen Fabian Livret und Jan Lutz sowie von Migo Fecke vom Professional Podcast. Wir freuen uns, wenn Sie nächste Woche wieder reinhören. Bis dahin wünsche ich Ihnen eine gute und informative Zeit. Ihre Larissa Holzki.
Echter Wandel in Unternehmen ist oft begleitet von Widerständen, Routinen und alten Denkmustern. Der Change-Kongress setzt genau hier an. Er zeigt, wie Transformation dennoch erfolgreich gelingen kann. Wer nur auf neue Tools hofft, wird hier nicht fündig. Wer auf neue Denkanstöße, echte Kontroversen und überraschende Perspektiven setzt, umso mehr. Intensiver Austausch mit wertvollen Kontakten inklusive. Melde dich jetzt an unter change-kongress.de. Mit dem Code PODCAST sparst du 10%.